Hello everyone, thanks for being here. Today marks the first day ever that I interview someone on this channel. Could be the beginning of a beautiful new thing. With that being said, let's go ahead and welcome Shawn Farquhar.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm awesome. I'm your first. I feel very special. I think I was your first to do a reaction of a reaction of a reaction of a reaction. So we're doing a lot of firsts together.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And in fact, I would like to acknowledge that this video wouldn't even exist if it weren't for the fact that you were on Fool Us. I reacted to you, you reacted to my reaction, to which I reacted, to which you reacted also. Which ended up being a whole lot of faces talking about magic.
And very little magic in there. Like, you could barely see the cards at one point.
And in fact, there was a fan art that someone sent me that I wanted to share with you. He says, Jason and Shawn's videos by the end of 2020.
Oh, yeah. That's great. Oh, they went really good. Look at that. Took screen captures from everywhere. That's so good.
Yeah, and then there was another one he made, this one. Simply having a Zoom call to discuss life and magic on one hand. Jason and Shawn having a conversation by making a ton of videos where they can each get in a few words every week.
So that's why he laughs so much. Now I get it.
Oh, and I would like to thank D Sage Magic on Instagram for creating those photos. I thought they were very funny.
They are very cool.
Okay, so here's how I'm planning to do this interview. First time doing one. I'm going to ask Shawn a bunch of normal questions. Then we're going to have questions from my Patreon members, as well as questions from my general YouTube subscribers. And then, I'm hoping, if there's time, Shawn's going to help me interpret an Aesop's fable together.
Ooh, yes!
So that's the plan.
It's awesome! So I should be succinct with my answers.
Yeah,
So we have time.
There were about 98 submissions when I made a community
Wow.
post asking for questions for you.
We should wait till we have 100.
Okay, let's just give it a couple more minutes. Okay, so I've got a few questions of my own before we get into the rest of those. These would be the normal questions because they're from me. How did you find out about my videos? And then what gave you the idea to make a reaction to my reaction?
So my daughter set up for me a Google alert on Google that if my name pops up in something, it sends me a little message. So about once every few weeks something comes up and I usually don't even bother to look. And then this came up that said magician reacts to, and I was like, oh, well, how's that? But it wasn't to your video, it was a Reddit comment where it popped up in the Google thing. And so then I had to go read the Reddit thing to understand, so I had to sign up for Reddit. And then after seeing the Reddit thing, then I found the YouTube channel. And then before I watched it, I went and said, what are these reaction things? I watched one of your other reactions and went, I want to react to this. That's how it all came about.
That's awesome, especially that thing about a Google alert. I didn't even know that was possible.
Yeah, you can put anything you want to in, and whenever that pops up, it will actually send you an alert about it.
Thanks to whoever posted it on Reddit, I didn't even see that, and I'm glad that you, Shawn, ended up seeing it yourself.
Me too.
Next question. All right, let's get down to brass tacks. Can you prove that that bookcase behind you is not a green screen?
No, but it isn't. Well, I could reach back, but I have an earplug in, and the cord's not long enough. But I built this bookcase. It took 3 years. So if you're really bored, you can go back and look at my Instagrams, as over a 3-year period, I showed the building of it.
I am curious. It strikes me that you're a very resourceful person, like a very do-it-yourselfer. I was talking to you one time before, and you were like, yeah, just do this and pick that up and go to the store and buy that, and you can just easily put that together. And I couldn't believe it. And in fact, on Facebook, I saw your you wanted to have this like metal kind of handle for like a vault door, and you just basically 3D printed it or something and made it all yourself, and it looked great at the end, and I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I went looking on the internet for a big steel handle wheel, and I wanted engraving in it to put on a vault in Hidden Wonders. And they were all these big, huge steel or aluminum weighing 12 and 14 pounds. And I was like, I don't want that big a handle. So I used a laser cutter, and I cut multiple layers of the wheel and then glued all the wheel edges together until it became one big wheel, and then used a router to smooth out all the edges, and then multiple different types of paints to create textures, and then laser cut into the wheel. The Trojan Safe Company, established in 1962. Yeah, I did that in like a 48-hour period. I was able to put it all together.
I was going to say all in a day's work, but I guess that's all in 2 days' work.
Because the paint took 2 days.
So was there ever a point in your life when you were not such a handy person, such a do-it-yourselfer? Like, did you have to, like, was there a phase where you kind of learned and got into that?
Yeah, I was about 6. My dad was a jack of all trades, a magician, auto mechanic, airframe mechanic, worked for the Canadian Armed Forces, and he did everything. He could fix musical instruments to complex radio systems. And I just watched my dad, and I was probably 6 when he started letting me touch stuff. Automobiles, not so much. It took a long time because he wanted to fix everything. I was probably 20 before I started fixing cars. My dad somehow was able to impart onto me that everything could be broken down into smaller and smaller parts until no matter how big a project it was, you just had to find where to start and how to extrapolate off of it. And thank God for Google, because now when I don't understand something, the side view mirror on my car broke the other day, and I just took and learned Adobe Illustrator and how to do a vector imaging, and then I found the dimensions for the mirror, and I just cut one out while I'm waiting for the real one to arrive because it takes 2 weeks. So I just cut out my own side view mirror.
Wow, that's really amazing. And in fact, I'm thinking right now that this upbringing has probably definitely influenced your creative style and your abilities as a magician to just, when you have some idea and you're like, that would be cool if, but I don't know how to do that, or that would be unrealistic, try to make that. But in your case, you just be like, oh, I'll do that tomorrow.
Yeah, you just break it down to what the barest is, and if you can't, then look at something that's similar to it, and then look at how they did that. And I love to learn, and I have a big workshop. I don't know how big it is. I think it's 5,000 square foot or something. It's big. You can put 6 cars in it. And so I have the space, and I inherited all my father's tools, and friends like Graham Keita gave me tools from his father, and Alex gave me his grandfather's tools. So I have tons of tools, and I want to learn. And so I learn. I make lots of mistakes too. I'm not perfect at anything.
Shawn the Toolman Farquhar.
That's it. I have the joke of I've got one of those in my garage because I challenge you. You could say something and the next day I see you, well, it may take 2 or 3 days to find it, but I have it in the garage. I guarantee.
Do you have any green Melissa in the garage?
No, that tea. I probably don't have green Melissa, but I definitely have at least 5 or 6 different tea boxes. Easily.
Oh, so back to the bookshelf. I did want to ask you, I know it would be very difficult to pick your favorite magic book, because by picking one, you'd be letting down 20 of your other magician friends. So just off the top of your head, can you name or mention 3 magic books that you think are kind of interesting or cool for whatever reason?
The Tarbell Course of Magic, #1, because it's got a whack volume. There's just a ton of them, 8, I guess. Just about anything that's ever been created, there is at least a nucleus coming out of Tarbell. Tommy Wonder's Books of Wonder, because of the wonderful essays and the discussions and the theory. 3, I really love Maximum Entertainment, which is really not a magic book so much as, and especially Maximum Entertainment 2.0. Yeah, Ken Weber's book. It's unbelievable, a resource to be a better magician. Those are off the top of my head.
Before we move off from the books, I also want to ask you if you have 2 or 3 or 4, whatever number of books that are not magic related that you thought were really interesting for some reason.
Whack to the Side of the Head. It's a book on creativity. Another Whack to the Side of the Head. It's another book on creativity. You think they could have come up with a better title for the second one? Being creative people, you think they would have. And I have the first 3 Star Wars trilogies written in Shakespearean. That's pretty cool.
I didn't know that existed.
Yeah, I have it. I also have a book called the Stagehand's Workbook, and it's a book of everything you ever wanted to know if you were a stagehand working in a theater.
Interesting selection of books. You fooled Penn and Teller twice. What did it feel like, and how did you celebrate that evening of the same day you won the Fool List the first time? And likewise, the same question for the second time you fooled Penn and Teller. I imagine it was a real high kind of feeling.
Yeah, you would, wouldn't you? No. I did a show in Paris the night before Fool Us. Flew the next morning, really super tired from the show in Paris. Arrived in London, was picked up by the crew. We filmed the video trailer first. They dropped me to change, then picked me up an hour later, took me to the studio where I ran through the rehearsals. We walked through the process. I sat in a green room for 4 hours, went out and filmed. And as soon as I finished filming, jumping up and down with joy, they loaded me in the car and and drove me back to the airport where I flew back to Paris. And I just crashed like a bucket of bolts because I had to get up and drive for another 7 hours the next day to get to the next gig. So I probably celebrated in August. That would have been the spring. So no. And then the second one, that was in Las Vegas, and no celebrating on either of them really. They were both fly-in, fly-outs.
But so I'm just curious about that feeling you had when you knew that you had fooled them. Like, I guess it's also related to, did you have a good suspicion that before you walked on, did you think to yourself,
Yeah,
like, I'm probably going to fool them? And then when you
Oh,
did,
you're
you were
so
like,
funny.
that's right.
That's so funny. No, when I went on the first time, I actually said no to them multiple times when the producers asked me because I didn't want to go on a show called Fool Us, because I don't think magic's about fooling. So I had any thought that I was going to fool him. Even when Johnny Thompson, who's my hero, I explained the trick to him because he's the judge, and he came back a second time and said, explain it to me one more time. I'm still confused on a couple of details. And afterwards he smiled and giggled and said, you're going to fool the boys. And I was like, wow, okay. I still didn't believe it. So if you ask me how I felt at that exact moment, you can see it in the video. I'm dancing like I'm 7 years old because it was like, woohoo! Even more to the story is that there was this long pause between when I performed and when the ending came because they had technical difficulties. So I was waiting for a very long period of time while they changed microphones and fixed stuff. And so they didn't have like a minute and a half like you see on the TV show. It was a long period of time. It felt like days for me. It was probably 20 minutes, but it was a long time. They had enough time to build a prototype. Yeah, that's what they had.
So Teller was like, okay, this? No? Next page,
no,
this?
Let's try it. Yeah. When they actually went back to filming, Jonathan Ross turns to me and he said, well, do you think the boys had enough time? And I said, I think they had enough time to build a prototype. And they went, and cut. And he said, you have to act like it's just been a few seconds. I said, okay. So he said, well, do you think the boys had enough time? And I said, well, let's ask the audience. And the whole audience laughed, 700 people. And he goes, and cut. And on the third one, he goes, well, I think the boys have had enough time. Let's go to them. It's like, don't talk to Shawn anymore.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I didn't think I would on the first, and I sure didn't think I would on the second. I didn't think I would on the third. It just, I go on it to do good magic and to have a fun time.
I guess one thing people don't consider is the fact that you've had so much professional experience in the past. I know for a fact that you were on Disney cruises performing for a long time. You've been involved with TV shows and movies. You've had a lot of awards. You're the 2-time world champion, magic. And so once you have so many successes, like having another one isn't quite as like shocking as maybe the first one. Can you say, when is the first time you had a big success where you felt like, wow, I can't believe this happened to me?
I think the first time I won a major award was the Pacific Coast Association of Magicians back in like 1983. And I remember that all the other competitors were Magic Castle juniors. There were so many of them. I just thought, I'm just going to get lost. And when they announced that I won, it was just elation, because it was sort of that moment that said, hey, you can do this for a living. At that point, I was working in a laboratory stuffing dead fetal pigs into jars with formaldehyde for science experiments. So
Wow.
I drove home and quit my job.
Well, I haven't been able to get to my list of questions because you said
Let's
so many
get to them.
interesting things
Sorry.
that it just made me come up with new questions.
It's even cooler.
I have one last spontaneous question. You said that you're something like an eternal optimist, and I'm curious, are you an optimist by nature, or are you an optimist more by choice?
I'm an optimist by choice. My dad made me always critically think things, and I did for a very long time. And then I reached a point where I had a lot of tragedies in a row, and I just decided that instead of looking at it as a tragedy, I looked at them as opportunities. I'm terrified of the Friday the 13th. I've lost a house to a flood, a fire, and a car drove through my living room wall, all on Friday the 13th. When the apartment building burned down, I remember the news cameras coming and sticking the camera in my face and going, well, you've lost everything. How do you feel? And I remember thinking, well, it's going to be the easiest move I've ever had.
Does that mean you got to start a brand new magic collection at that time? You didn't have to worry about the junk drawer anymore?
I lost so much of my magic, but then magicians came out of nowhere just giving me stuff. So much stuff was given to me, I ended up having to rent a storage locker because I didn't have an apartment. It burned down. I was renting a storage locker to store the stuff that people were giving me. Crazy.
And then that storage locker also burnt down.
No. But
No.
I reached a point where I had to start. Some stuff I kept that was slightly burned because I just didn't want to get rid of like old posters of my dad and stuff like that. But at one point it was like, no, they're charred and they have to go. I lost my theater for Hidden Wonders. I was in Chinatown in Vancouver, and during COVID, just basically I lost it. And everybody thought, oh, I bet he'll be depressed about that. In less than 2 weeks, my wife found a place that's twice as big, way better. And I've been so excited to spend the last month and a half building it. So it's just, some people look at the bad side. I look at the other side. There's that old line of half full or half empty for a glass. I just keep thinking, I bought the refillable.
That's awesome. And that's great that your dad influenced you in that way, because I
Yeah.
do feel like being positive is a choice in some ways. I mean, we're not like unrealistically happy all the time, but like
Yeah.
it is kind of like what you choose to really allow yourself to get into and stay into.
Yeah, I'm in no way an idiot. I don't just go, everything is sunny. No, I see the bad. I just choose to focus on the good.
Yeah. In fact, that reminds me, I submitted my audition for Fool Us on Friday, and
Yeah.
I'm in this waiting period, and I was thinking like, well, if they say yes, that'll be great. I'll be on Fool Us. If they say no, that'll be great. I can stop worrying and having so much anxiety about it. So
And think of all you learned in that short period of time while you built up an act, and the whole structuring of it, and the writing and the rewriting and the effects and everything. No matter what happens, you've got that. That's a positive.
yeah. If this video gets too long, maybe we'll split it into 2 videos, like a part 1 and part 2. I don't know.
2. That's 4. 2.
A quick question for the magicians out there. What is your favorite DL and favorite to DL get ready? And you can talk in code if you want, or whatever.
I prefer a strike. I think it's probably the best. Sometimes I do a pushover for the get ready, but most times it's just a strike. I do a side strike off of usually my middle finger, and then the adjustment with the index.
All right, well, let's jump into the Patreon questions here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. And then there's a gigantic number of questions from all the YouTube subscribers. Well, maybe we'll make that the rapid fire section.
Sure.
So Patreon questions, and I know the answer to this already, but I'll go ahead and ask. This is by Billy Jefferson IV. Is it true that being a magician is the only job he has ever had?
No, Billy. I've held a lot of jobs. I cooked pizzas. I was a prep cook. I dug graves. I was the tending for for church lawns, doing lawn mowing. I had my own lawn mowing service. I framed houses. I did roofing. And I studied for industrial electronics for wiring of houses as well. Yeah, I tried a lot of stuff. I even got all the way to sous chef. So I've done just about a ton of stuff, and more than that. Those are just the ones that pop into my head right off the top. Nope. But every time I went back to magic.
And if you just like also work into your list of jobs delivering a baby, you could say you did all the jobs from cradle to grave.
Oh, that's so good. I'll work on trying to deliver a baby sometime
Yes.
along the line.
You gotta
I'll
check
spend a
that
lot
off.
of time. Yeah, I'll just follow some pregnant woman for the next 6 months and just see if she makes it to hospital on time.
What are you doing back there? Oh, nothing.
Nothing. My hands are sterile. Let's get to this. That just sounded creepy. Okay, let's move on.
Okay, next question from Jeff Peterson. Shawn is big on never stop looking for a different solution. So what is the most recent trick he's updated due to always looking for something different?
That's totally right, Jeff. I'm always looking for another way to do the same effect. Coin in the bottle seemed to be the one that I've been playing with, that I've been making the YouTube videos, and I went to a lock in a bottle, and now I'm thinking about a bottle in a bottle, or maybe ice cubes in the bottle. So that one I've been really exploring. And torn and restored. I started with an idea from J.C. Wagner with his torn and restored, and I've now made it into a 3-fly routine. So I can tear the 4 pieces of the card up, and one by one they jump to the other hand, but as they jump they're restoring. And it was just taking an old idea and applying another idea and then working it into the third idea.
And I like your idea of bottle in bottle inception.
Yeah.
Next question. Next question
right out there.
is from Robert Hamill. Is it pretty frantic and crazy in the moments leading up to walking out on the Fool Us stage? I guess you already kind of answered this. And was it different between your first, second, and third appearances on the show? I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, or...
Yeah, Robert, the frantic part leading up to it really isn't, because they put you in a green room to sit for hours, so that the camera people are all more expensive than we are. So the talent all just sits. You sit in the basement. You come up in an elevator, and they walk you over to another spot where you sit for a little bit and you breathe, and then they microphone you up, and then you move to another position where the floor manager tells you what you're going to do, and then they go, "It's time," and you walk out. So there's no frantic, because your rehearsals are all before. For me it was, but for most people, they're there a day in advance. They rehearse, then they block, and then they go through all the stages. And they do that to make you really comfortable. The technical crew and the producers are really nice at Fool Us. They're really good people. And they were a little bit different. The first one, they were still building the stage, so it was kind of chaotic. The second one was at Penn and Teller's Theater, so it was way more relaxed. And the third one, I felt like an old home week for me to be back again.
Next question from Kenny Desrochers. Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. I'd be interested in his magic theater, how as it's changed his professional life, does still do shows abroad regularly in normal circumstances? Okay, there's a bunch of questions here. Why don't we just stop there?
Kenny, my Hidden Wonders, when it opened in September, I basically stopped working. I resigned from Disney Cruise Line. It only took a few weeks for Disney to come back and say, please cover a few dates for me. And I agreed, and made it so that I could still do the theater. Theater is my primary goal now, but I also have agreed to travel when things get better. I've already agreed to go and do a show in Germany for a production, and I'm going to Australia. So traveling's in my blood. I'll continue to do that, but I don't want to do it as much. I was doing 285 days a year. I was on the road, 285 days. That's a lot. So
that is a lot.
Now I'm hoping to be on the 85 side. That would be much better.
And, okay, I read through the rest of his question. He says, is there any quirky detail about the venue, like a hidden passage or...
Oh, there's tons of cool things about it. It looks like, it used to look like an old Chinese tailor shop. Now it looks like an old curio shop with antiques and old trunks and stuff. But when you look closer, the trunks have markings from magicians that I've collected over the years. There's like old ventriloquist heads, and the photos that are up in there are of old magic conventions. So lay people won't notice, but magicians will go crazy in the curios area. Then you have to pick the right doorknob and find the right wall and stick the doorknob on the wall for the hidden door to open. And then when you're inside and you close it, it's a vault door on the other side. And then you're in the lounge, and from the lounge into the theater. It's all about the experience. I studied under watching Disney for 7 years, working for them. Everything is in the details, so it's all quirky.
So how do you balance wanting to have a fake storefront and then also wanting to get people to come in? Because if it just really looks like a tailor shop, maybe people wouldn't come in there for magic.
They won't. I don't want anybody to come. I don't want a single person off the street to come in. It's a speakeasy. The only way to find out where it is to buy a ticket. And once they buy the ticket, then they learn where the location is. And then they know that they have to go through the steps to do it. For 6 months, I was sold out 2 months in advance. It's crazy. People love the idea that you buy something and that you're on a street where nobody else knows. My neighbors, it took them months to figure out, you're not a tailor.
So what happens if a random person from the street does walk in? Do they just
let
kind of
them
look around
wander in
and walk out?
Sure. Wander in, wander around. Hey, if they want to buy some of my curio stuff, help themselves. My line will be anything that's got a price tag on it's for sale. Anything that doesn't is my magic memorabilia.
So curios stuff, you mean like curious items?
Yeah, curios is usually for describing things that are like little knickknacks and everything, but I wanted to be like curious, but curios, because the definition of curios is rare. And everything in there is going to be rare. Most is going to be one of a kind.
2 more Patreon questions. One from Matthew Widjaja. What is one question or topic about you or magic, that you wish people knew about, but most don't?
One topic. Yeah, I think it would be interesting. One thing most people don't know, they all know me in the magic world as the close-up magician, as the guy they saw in Penn and Teller's Fool Us. And most don't know that my career started as a children's birthday party entertainer, went on to comedy clubs, and then I went on to a bird act. And most people have never seen it. But I had an 8-minute silent bird act in tuxedo and tails that won international awards all over the place.
Wow.
I produced 8 doves in my act. Yeah, I produced an umbrella cockatoo, little baby white parakeets, because I would toss a dove into the air, and the handkerchief would come down with some feathers. I collect the feathers up, squeeze them, and it turned into a little white parakeet. Like there wasn't enough feathers to make a whole bird. Then I would scoop the white handkerchief, put it over top, and toss it out, and it flew back as a full-size bird. Yeah, most people don't know that. So I've had more than just a card trick career.
Last Patreon question from Fritz Rutz. And I had to kind of paraphrase this one because I didn't quite get it, but it's about social media. Has it become easier now, I guess, versus in the past to attract a bigger audience on social media for you? And has social media made some kind of impact on your career?
I don't know if it made an impact on my career. Social media makes it way cooler and easier to connect with my fans and friends, and I think that's awesome. I've always wanted, in my show, I want to connect with the audience. I'm not just performing for them, I want to perform with them. I want it to be something special, and social media gives me that. I love that I can respond to questions, I can read all the stuff that are in the comments. I don't know whether it helped my career. I guess it did, because I use the social media for advertising for Hidden Wonders. Without things like Facebook and Instagram, that wouldn't exist. So yeah, I think it's a good thing.
I see we've been recording for probably 45 minutes. How would I know how long we've been recording?
You're going to have trouble editing this all down. I'll try to be faster with my answers.
Well, I just had an idea now, maybe that we divide at the part where I get to all the YouTube subscriber questions, or would that be kind of heartbreaking to them, you think?
Well, we could do 2 of them and go, look at all the time. Let's do volume 2, and they'll all be excited.
Okay. And we'll just go ahead and record it tonight if it's okay with you.
I'm totally good with doing it as long as you want to. Just keep going. All I'm going to do is cut wood. Just going to push wood through a saw.
I was going to say, is that an expression that means something else?
Cut wood. No, I'm building 8 tabletops right after this. I just bought a big sheet of birch plywood, and I'm going to cut all the tabletops and then start putting them through the laser to put the logos in the corner. And then tonight I'll stain them.
Man, you do everything with that laser. Some people have a 3D printer, but you got your laser.
Yeah, I want a 3D printer too, and I want the CNC cutter. I want everything. I just have to. I have 2 lasers. Two lasers.
Do you ever have them like a sword fight like Star Wars?
No, but if the beams cross, the ghost goes into the past. It's really awesome. Don't cross the beams.
Yeah. Oh, I love that movie. Okay, so...
Me too. The original. Not so great on the last one, but my daughter loved the last one the most.
I think I got halfway through the last one and then I just stopped watching.
Yep. Why did they do that to my movie?
Okay, so here I've got a couple other questions. I don't know how to categorize these. And now... Okay.
Random question time.
And now we move on to a new segment called More Questions with Shawn Farquhar.
Awesome.
Okay, I have a question about work-life balance. And I'm curious if you set specific boundaries, or do you let everything just kind of happen freely? Like, do you feel the need to set aside a certain amount of time to relax that is not considered work? And in this case, since you're a magician, magic would be categorized as work. And then the follow-up question is, how do you keep magic fun and not feeling like work when you're doing it all the time? But most importantly, I'm curious if you have like a hard defined boundary between work and relaxing time, or you don't really worry about that.
I've heard about those people. Don't use me as an example of a good person, because when it comes to magic, it's first and foremost. It eclipses my days, my nights, it's everything. My world revolves around magic. I was lucky enough to find a beautiful woman who loved me and understood that. And we've been married 31 years. I don't think there are many people that could persevere with me. I eat, sleep, drink magic 24/7. I don't have any boundaries. I have to physically stop and think and say, hey, we should do something as a family now. And I do that quite often. But I have to actually physically stop and go, now would be a good time. Let's have a meal together. Because I get caught up. I can go out and work in the workshop and Lori will come out and say, it's dinner. I'm like, oh, wow. And I've been out there for 9 hours. I love magic. I'm addicted to magic. I'm down to 2 packs a day. 2 packs a day. Come on, that's funny. I don't have any boundaries, and the women in my life don't restrict me with the boundaries, which is awesome. My daughter understands. We live in a house we call Chateau Farquhar, the house that cards built. I wouldn't have this house. I wouldn't have the cars. I wouldn't have anything if it wasn't for magic and my passion for it. And so for me, nope, no boundaries. Just do whatever I want to. Always doing magic, and when you said, do I need to be rejuvenated? No, I don't need to be rejuvenated. I had an email from a person the other day that said, I'm going through a funk where I just can't find it. And what do you do when you have those funks? And I was like, I really can't answer that question. I don't have a funk. Even my worst of times when, everything burned down or I lost everything in a flood, I immediately, while I was watching, the restoration people coming and move stuff out, going, how much can that pallet lift? Will that lift like a body? And I was immediately on. It's like, yeah, that's the way I think. It doesn't matter what it is. Nothing. It's really hard to get me down.
You were looking to dispose of a body, or was something related to magic tricks?
Magic. I was thinking.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, that's a good question. I've got easier ways to dispose of a body. Didn't I mention I have 3/4 of an acre of land? Yeah.
And your big workshop, right?
And a big workshop. And lots of tools.
So for me, the reason I asked you that is because I'll be working on YouTube stuff, I'll be working on magic stuff, and it's stuff that I like to do, but I consider when I'm like actively doing something, like learning something, or like my full attention, I'm taking notes, I'm processing, I'm upright and, using my hands. Somehow in my mind, I've categorized that as work, and then near the end of the day, I'm like, now I need to do not work. And so I'm going to just watch Netflix and just veg out like a couch potato. And I've been doing that for a couple of years. Like there's a separate period late at night before I go to sleep where I do that. And I was starting to think like, maybe that's not necessary. Maybe I could just completely chop off that part and just like do useful stuff and like interesting, cool stuff all the time.
I think having that's kind of cool. Don't get me wrong. I Netflix and chill and Amazon and chill, but at the same time, I usually have my laptop on my lap and I'm responding to emails from people and working on my Palmer Magic mail order business, which I think is funny because people email a question and it'll be like 2:30 in the morning and I respond because they're like in Japan or China and they're like, wow, do you ever sleep? I'm like, no, not really. And I finish the question and people are like, your responses are always fast. Yep, because that's what I'd expect. So, but I'm still watching, the Watchmen on HBO and typing away and watching the program. And it's hard. My chill is when we were able to go to movie theaters. That was one of the greatest things ever. The whole family, we'd pack up, get in the car, and go watch a movie. And if the movie sucked, then my brain went off onto, I should be doing this, and I got that idea, and I should be working on that. But when the movie was great, I was lost for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and then got in the car, and on the drive home, we'd have a discussion about the movie, and as soon as I hit the house, back into magic again.
And you're like, could that lift a body?
Yeah. I wonder what they used for the CGI to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the next thing is about your early life. What was life like for you in high school? Second question, were you already performing magic at this time? And then number 3, did you first meet your wife performing magic for her?
Wow. So I've been performing magic pretty much as long as I can remember. I had my own television series when I was in junior high school. So by the time I reached high school, kids already knew me from TV. And you'd think that would make high school really cool. It didn't. I was a small little group of people, a clique, gang, whatever you want to call it, and we hung together and stayed away from other people, and it wasn't elitist, it was kind of like the ragtag outcast kids. I moved from one high school to another. As I moved from high school to high school, we traveled a lot. It was a matter of my brother always found the biggest guy in the school and hit him, and if he won, then we were good. If he lost, then my brother was a nut, so they all stayed away from him. And I looked at the first kid that looked like he was going to hit me and vomited cards out of my mouth, and they all went, oh, he's a clown, and moved along. And that's how high school went. Yeah, I was performing, I was doing school shows. I was taking the carpentry class so I could learn to build boxes, and taking the theater class, and the marketing class, and the English class, and failing in things like biology and physics because I couldn't see an application in my magic. So
yeah.
Even my high school yearbook says, Shawn's going to graduate and tour across Canada with his own show. That's what it said. That's what I was going to do. I met my wife camping. I'd done a magic show, and a couple of guys at the end that said, hey, next weekend we're all jumping in vans and going to a big party. Do you want to go? I read Van's party. I had a van. Said, sure. That night came around. I had the night off. They arrived at my door. I was all dressed up in a nice pair of slacks and a shirt to go to a party, and we drove for about 4 hours to a campsite where apparently we were staying for 3 days. They had like toothbrushes and food, and I had a deck of cards and a nice outfit on. And
Who hired the magician?
Exactly. There was bands. There was hundreds and hundreds of people. It was all people that were into vanning. People that had vans and they had beds in them and everything. I had like a mattress in the back to sleep on. And on the first night, there was this lovely young lady, and I tried to impress her, and she wouldn't have anything to do with me. Her friends seemed more impressed than me with me than she did. And I finally convinced them that the next weekend I was doing a show in a nightclub. They should come see it. And they came. And during the show, my bird act, I tossed a rose out, and the two girls fought over it. So I thought that was a good sign. So I asked the one out that I was attracted to, and she agreed. And I later married her. And it was years later I found in her purse, we were cleaning out an old purse, one of the playing cards from that first night. So I guess she did have some kind of interest because she kept one playing card and kept it in her purse. So maybe she was playing hard to get. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really quite a story.
Yeah, that was 37 years ago.
Have you seen that movie Yes Man with Jim Carrey?
Yeah.
And that kind of reminded me of that when you were at the end of the show and people were like, oh, we're having a party in a week from now and camping and you want to go? And you're like, yeah.
Yeah. Why not? Yeah, I got better at that. We went on a lot of those camping things, and I learned how to, pack for it with like actual food. I walked around that campsite that weekend doing card tricks for hot dogs, and people would just give you a beer. It was fun.
Okay. I think this is great. We're gonna have to divide this video into 3 parts, actually.
There you go.
Okay. So next part, creative process. I've noticed you're a very creative person. Have you always been that way? Did you read books about how to be creative? And let me just pause there and let you answer those. And I've got 2 more.
Sure. I, as a young man, didn't think I was creative. I was surrounded by creative people. People like Greg Fruin, who ideas just drop out of his head. Kevin James, those are the people I knew. And so I thought that was creativity. Don Wayne. I just assumed they just, whoop, and ideas popped in their head, which they do for them. It doesn't for me. It took me a long time to learn that creativity is a tool that I could actually, it's like a muscle, and I can build it. And it comes with reading and listening and seeing stuff and being willing to go in a different direction. Creativity is like water. You find the easiest path, and when you hit something that you can't do anything, you just keep banging at it until it gives way. I did read a lot of books. There's a ton of books that talk about creativity. Most of them I don't agree with. One I do agree with is Whack to the Side of the Head. I think it's awesome. And so is another Whack to the Side of the Head. And The Trick Brain by Dario Fitzky. It kind of clinically takes apart the book by saying there's only 7, things you can do in magic, but there's 1,000 items that you can put those together. I watched Kevin James and learned that he doesn't just have the ideas pop in his head. He travels with 3x5 cards, and it's plots and props and conclusions, and he moves them around and makes new things and then tries to come up with an idea for it. And it's a really fun exercise for your brain. My creativity comes from sleep deprivation.
2 last questions about the creative process. Do you ever get writer's block and you need to encourage your creativity somehow?
I get writer's block all the time, and it's not because of the thought pattern. It's in that I hit stumbling blocks of I have no way to do something, and so I write them down. I write all my ideas down. I have a drawer that's got more than 20 notebooks sitting in there, and I'll write the idea down to where it is and what I want of the ending, but I don't have the capability. I don't have the understanding or the technology, or maybe science hasn't caught up to it. And then later I'll see something and go, wait, and then run back to the notebook, and that'll work for that. And so I have the patience of Job. I'll just wait until it all comes together. Yeah, all the time. I hit a stumbling block and I just stop. The best way to get over it is to write it down and forget about it for a little bit, and then revisit it.
All right, well, I guess that already answers the next question, which was going to be, what advice would you give for other magicians who want to get started creating their own magic? Well, maybe it doesn't answer it.
Don't look for the final solution right off the top. Just start like anything else, break it down into small little pieces. I want to get to here, I want to get to there, I want to get to here, and then I'm going to get to there. See the big picture, but break it down into small pieces. And then simplify those small pieces till it becomes a very simple method. And always green hat. That was Evelyn Kingston, who was a phenomenal set designer and artistic director. She says, when I would say something negative in a meeting, and I'd say, well, what about, she goes, say, we're not wearing our black hats right now, we're wearing our green hats. There are gray hats. The black hat is when you're going to go negative, and I'm like, whatever. But the green hat is when everything is growing. And I was like, okay, so only positive thoughts. Just keep throwing out all the positive thoughts you want to. Wear that green hat and say, well, I can do this, I can do that, I can do that. And then afterwards, you can then funnel it down until it becomes something. Same as when I'm building my theater. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then when I got there, I said, I'm going to be more practical.
All right, cool. The Disney cruise ship experience. So you were performing on a Disney cruise ship as the magician or one of several magicians, and how long was that?
So I've been cruising for more than 30 years, and about 8 years ago, a headhunter from Disney came to me and said, we'd love you to come over and join our brand. And so I moved over for the inaugural cruise of the Disney Fantasy, which is their newest ship in the fleet, the largest, most beautiful, and it was really exciting. They have a single magician that performs on an evening in the big gala Walt Disney Theater. On the other nights, you get to see things like the entire production of Beauty and the Beast, or a fully written show that's just for that ship with a cast of 21 Broadway quality stars. And they do 3 nights of those massive Disney shows, and in between they have 2 variety shows, or sometimes they'll just have a Disney feature movie. When a new movie comes out, they'll world premiere it on the ship before it even hits land. And so the one night is, Disney Spectacular, then the next night was Star Wars premiere, and then the next night is Beauty and the Beast, and the next night is, here's Shawn. And then the last night is a big Disney Dreams and Wishes show. And for 90% of the audience, they never heard of you before. I'm not a Disney entity at the time, but over the 7 years, I basically became a Disney property. People knew me, and I was definitely one of the most requested Disney acts and highest rated. They loved that people came back year after year, sometimes 2 and 3 times in a year to see the show. And I changed some stuff in the show to make it fresh. And it was a 45-minute production, family-friendly, but not a kids show. It was designed so that adults and grandmas, the people who paid for the cruise, really felt they got their money's worth, and the kids got to laugh and have a good time. And it was one of the best experiences of my life.
Wow. And do you feel like having had that experience that it specifically influenced the way you do magic in any particular way, or not especially?
I think it changed some. My years on Norwegian Cruise Lines definitely changed how I performed magic. That's when I went from the bird guy who, just did an act that I could do in front of a mirror and you didn't have to be there, to being the performer that I needed an audience to feed off of, and my show was only as good as the audience and I became together. When I went to Disney, I amplified that to the point where it was just a community gathering, and the amount of energy you give them, they'll give it double back. And I made that my mantra. Whatever they gave me, I doubled it back. So if they went insane when I appeared, I had a table that the cloth flew into the air, images appeared on it, the cloth hit the table. As soon as it touched the table, my shadow appeared, the cloth flew up, and there I was standing on the stage. And then when they went, I gave it twice as much. If they went, yay, I gave them twice as much. And that was how it worked. It was the stories I could tell you, the connections I made. It changed my feeling. And when I left and started Hidden Wonders, the entire idea was to put that Disney feeling of details and seriousness into it, and real commitment, and making it a choose your own adventure was all based on what I experienced while I worked on the cruises.
Really interesting. And I have one rather not serious question, but just did you get seasick?
Twice in 30 some odd years I got seasick. One was 30-foot swales. We were going through Hurricane Olga, and I was on a very small ship, the Norwegian Dream, and so in one single list of the ship, the entire pool went over the side of the ship, and we were in the eye of the hurricane for 3 days. And
you could have died.
Easily, yes. And they issued crackers and vodka to everybody. The vodka to throw off your equilibrium so that you didn't feel in the cracker to suck up the stomach acids. And on that, yeah, I got seasick twice. Other than that, nope. Most of the time I didn't even remember I was on a ship. I lived on it 10 and a half months a year. My daughter was raised on it. She learned to walk and talk on a cruise ship. It was funnier to watch when we hit land after 10 months at sea because we walked with the balance fixing. So we were correcting ourselves on land and it looked very odd.
Yeah, that's very cool. Last question about Disney cruise ship experience. What was life like working on a cruise ship? Did it feel like a Groundhog Day?
It never felt like Groundhog Day to me because when I started on the ships, it was with my wife and we did something new every day. And we only worked 1 day a week, so we had lots of time to explore, learn, and do stuff. And then when my daughter came along and we raised her on board, we were a family. And so every day was different. What was great about it was every day we woke up and we were someplace new. One day you were in Portugal, the next day you were in Spain, the next day you were in Venice, Italy. It was amazing.
Oh, that's amazing, yeah.
And we woke up in a new place and explored it. And the great thing was we weren't in a rush to explore it because we knew in maybe 10 days we'd be back again and we could see more of it. And so
that's perfect. So you're not
our adventure
frantic,
continued.
like, we have to see this. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was relaxed. And some days we'd sleep in and go, we're in Mexico. We can get up later in the afternoon and go lay on the beach. And let's go find, where the locals shop. And so it wasn't like Groundhog Day. I know people, guest entertainers, who go on and say, oh, it's terrible. Every day seems like the other day. And that's because they're not doing what everybody else does. They just lock themselves in their cabin and they do their show. Yeah. And every day can seem like that.
Maybe they didn't have a special person to be with,
Yeah. Well, in the last 7 years on Disney, I was by myself. But I found people. I went looking for people. I met guests and I met staff and crew and made friends. And I had friends in ports. So when we went back to Alaska, I went to Alaska for 30 years, every summer to Alaska. This is the first summer I haven't been to Alaska in 30 years.
Okay, moving to the next category, TV shows. Now, I remember hearing, I think you mentioned to me before that you'd worked on the X-Files show. And I'm wondering, what are all the TV shows that you worked on?
Oh my God, how many TV shows? I have no idea how many TV shows I've worked on. Recent ones, like for Hulu, I worked on a show called Shut Eye, which is kind of cool. I worked on Outer Limits, Poltergeist: The Legacy. I did stuff for the television show Flash recently. I've done the X-Files, Highlander, where they chopped the guy's head off. I've done... we're just doing TVs, not movies, because I got tons of movies too.
What kind of things were you doing? How were you involved?
Special effects, practical special effects. So there's special effects that are digital or enhanced special effects, and then there is practical. And practical is where special effects used to be. And they're better because the actor gets to react to them. If you say to an actor, here's the green screen and the dragon's going to be there, now act scared, you get one reaction. But if they say, okay, start to act, and they lean in a giant dragon face into your face, you react differently. And I created stuff like Highlander, where the guy's head gets chopped off, and then he drops to his knees, sparks fly around him, then he floats into the air. Well, the sparks are CG, that's the digital effect, but the floating, I rigged up floating. It was really fun. It allowed my creativity because I had this massive budget. X-Files had $1 million an episode. And they go, we want to do something like this. And you go, yes. And then some of them were just call-ins. I worked on a TV show called Nightmare Cafe with Robert Englund, the guy who starred in Freddy Krueger. And in this one, the guy phoned me in the morning and said, hey, Shawn, our principal is going to juggle 3 eggs, 2 disappear. One he cracks open and a baby chick comes out. He throws the baby chick into the air and it bursts into flames. Can you do that? And I said, sounds like fun. He says, drop by the studio around noon. It was 10 in the morning. I was there by noon. I walk in. He goes, so how long do you think this it will take to put together? And I said, when's the day? Which is like, when are they going to film? And he said, it's today. I said, no, when's the day? And he says, today, in about 6 hours. I was like, oh, good planning. Can the actor juggle? He said, no. I said, oh, that's even better. So in 6 hours, I concocted an entire way to allow Robert Englund to look like he was juggling, to make 2 eggs disappear, crack the one, have a baby chick come out, burst into flames in midair. I made it work.
Wow.
And it was fun, and I got it in 2 takes. I had a really great reputation of being able to do most things in 1 take, and they always did like a safety take afterwards. I've worked on so many shows, and some of them are minor little tiny things, and other ones are major things. Sometimes it's just a prop that they need something designed.
The last 2 segments, well, I guess really maybe the last one, accomplishments. I guess we already covered this. I know you've received many awards. Which one was the most meaningful? You mentioned that first one that
My
made
daughter.
you really feel like,
It's my biggest accomplishment. And being married for 31 years, that's an even bigger accomplishment. But that goes to the credit of my wife. Yeah, I've won, I think the count is 43 International Magic Awards now. I think it's something like that.
Is there one that's the most meaningful to you? Or hard to say?
Yeah, the most meaningful is that first one from the PCAM because it was the day I decided I could actually do magic for a living. And I came home and packed my bags and said, I'm going to go make a living at this. Quit my job, the security of all that, and went on. And it's a small little trophy with a little brass lamp on the top of it. I drove all the way from California home with it on the front dash of my van. When I got to the Canadian border, the border guard said, you got anything to declare? And I said, I'm a winner.
That's amazing.
I practiced saying that for an hour before I got to the border. I said, he's going to say, anything to declare? And I'm going to say, I'm a winner. And
How
I
did he
did.
respond to that? Just like move
He
along.
smiled, nodded his head, and said, uh-huh. Is that what the thing in the dash is? I said, yes, sir. He says, what's the value of that?
Back to his job, yeah.
Right back into his job.
When and what was it like the first time a stranger recognized you in public?
Oh, the first time. The first time was really weird. I was at a bus station, and so I was young, because I had all the television stuff when I was really young, so that's kind of hard, because they were all the people around me from my school and everything. But I moved out to British Columbia like 1979, and I went to a Greyhound bus station, and this couple just looked at me for a few minutes, and then the girl turned and said, I'm sorry, but are you a magician? And I was like, I am. She says, Shawn? I was like, yes. And it was like I thought I was being set up. It was like there was some sort of con, because I couldn't believe that there was any level of fame at all from it. They're like, oh, we've seen you on TV. I said, how? And I didn't realize that CBC broadcasting was across the country. I thought it was just my, local TV that saw me, but apparently it was everywhere. And more recently, I still freaks me out. I was at the lumberyard just 3 days ago. I've got the mask on. I've got a ball cap on. I've got this young man helping me load some stuff into the back. His name was Elijah, and I'm on like the 3rd piece of lumber, and he says to me, your name isn't Shawn, is it? And I went, what? He says, oh, I didn't think so. I said, no, my name is Shawn. He goes, oh my God, I watched all your YouTube videos. I was like, what? It's like, I heard you were from Maple Ridge. I just can't believe that I'm talking to you. And I was like, it's still surreal to me. It really is, because,
Yeah.
I live in a small little community. I do what I do what I love, and I don't recognize the reach.
Yeah, that's super cool. I wanted to share a quick experience that I had. I've only been recognized twice, and both times surprised me very much, because I don't think my YouTube channel is quite really big enough yet to be recognized. But one time I flew back to the US, December. I flew there to buy a bunch of camera equipment and like new stuff for YouTube. And it was like a smash and grab. I was there for 3 days and just coming back because it was cheaper to fly round trip, buy it in a tax-free state of Delaware, and then come back. And
Wow.
and I thought, yeah, this will be an adventure. And I was in the Best Buy in Delaware. And I was talking to the salesman. I was looking at this new Sony camera. And then I heard a voice behind me saying, excuse me, are you a magician? And I was like, and it's funny how you described it, because the first thought that came into my head is like, someone's playing a joke on me or something, like someone who knows me, like a friend found me or something. So I turn around and I was like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, you do those reaction videos on YouTube? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, I love your videos, man. And I was like, he was surprised to see me, but I was more mind blown that some stranger had recognized me once.
It's pretty humbling, right? Because you're like all of a sudden go, wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, I was smiling way more than him.
It's still surreal. It really is.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever get over it.
Last question into accomplishments. Which magic trick that you've created are you the most proud of?
Oh, that's a real toss-up. My favorite piece of magic I've created is Shape of My Heart because I close my shows with it and it's beautiful and it's cards and it's theater and it's just really wonderful. But I have another one called Unwritten that it hasn't been seen by a lot of people. I only do it in live shows. I haven't published it anywhere. And it's just about as special now. If you're talking about things I've released to the magic community, it would probably be Torn to Pieces, my torn and almost restored photograph. I have a photograph that you tear into 4 sections after it's been signed, and when we restore it, it restores all mixed up. And that's just, it's crazy. I do Zoom shows right now, and I do it over and the photo ends up looking like that. Isn't that crazy? It's
Yeah,
like
I've
got
actually
torn
bought
edges
that
here.
effect from you.
There. So yeah, that's probably my favorite released magic effect because it's great to see how many people have done things with it and what they've done with it. Recently, there was a guy who did with a photograph of a dog, and they said, can you do a trick for me? And he goes, I don't do tricks. My dog does tricks. Would you like to see him do one? And it just, I love to see all the adaptations. I don't know, it's hard. It's like asking which one of your kids is your favorite. But I think if you're just talking overall, everything I've created, Shape of My Heart. It's kind of like my anthem.
And that's the one, in case somehow you don't know, that's the one that I believe you had on YouTube and it kind of went viral, right? Where you're doing to that song.
Yeah, to Sting's Shape of My Heart, the song. And it's just a lyrical dance of cards in my hands. And I did it at the World Championship in Beijing and added into it the signed and sealed card deck thing. I put the two of them together and made it into one piece that won me the Grand Prix World Championship.
That's really cool. You know how some bands say that after going around touring and performing a lot, they get really tired of wanting to play their classics that everybody loves. Since you have this magic trick that has a song in it, do you ever get that feeling that people ask for that too much and you're like, I want to show you this new thing?
No, I don't, because it's just such a beautiful piece and I'm always evolving. I change moves in it all the time to make it, as I evolve and become better at things, I change parts of it so it becomes a new piece of art for me. I can tell you though that I don't listen to the song unless I'm performing because that song just is the performance. To just listen to it is not a relaxing thing for me because my head goes into all that. Yeah.
In fact, if you were somewhere out and about and it started playing in the background, your hands would probably start unconsciously moving or something.
Really starts to do that. Television, I think it's too long on just hands. I've had some very well-known, high-level magicians talk about, performing it, and all of them, when it comes down to it, once they examine it, they're like, it's just a crotch shot for a very long time. That's what the one magician called it. He said, that's just a crotch shot for a long time. And it was
Yeah, and I'd seen the video so long ago, I don't quite remember. But at the beginning or the end, you must show your face because I remember thinking that it's you.
I start off with the cards up on my hand. I talk about it being signed, and I say, listen closely. I think you're going to like this. This one's my favorite. And as I come down, the music starts. The whole trick ends. When the trick is ending, the card ends up in my teeth. Then I bring it back down. Then I come up for the applause, and then I spit the deck of cards out of my mouth. And so it brings everything back to the face. Although I've been criticized that the routine is so beautiful and romantic, and all of a sudden I got the clown at the end spitting cards out of my mouth. And I'm like, that's me. That's me. You can't not. And it draws everything back to being on my face.
Yeah. I guess everybody's going to have an opinion about that.
Oh, yeah. My dad said everybody has an opinion. They're like butts. Everybody's got one. Some are bigger than others, and most of them stink.
I like that. Okay, so that was the end of the normal questions segment, which ran way longer than I anticipated.
Way longer. But you'll be able to edit to what you want and make 2 out of it.
So Shawn, thank you so much for taking this time to answer all these questions with me. I see that this has gone a little bit long, so I think we're going to have to divide the second part for a second video, and that's going to be all the YouTube subscribers' questions, of which there were almost 100, plus Shawn is going to help interpret an Aesop's fable with me. I can't wait to share this experience with someone else for the first time, so make sure to stay tuned for that next video. Anyways, Shawn, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me here. I can't wait to do video 2.
And thank you guys for watching. Make sure to go check out Shawn's YouTube channel. Smash like on everybody's videos because who doesn't like smashing like? And I'll see you next time.
go.